Hi, this is Greg McIntyre, estate planning and elder law attorney with McIntyre Elder Law, and I'm here with my law partner,
Brenton Begley, also estate planning and elder law attorney.
and we're going to talk about the top 3 mistakes in estate planning, the top 3 mistakes that we see in estate planning. And the first one that we see that is huge is a failure to plan. So failing to plan and how that can hurt you, okay? You may say, hey, I'm going to be dead anyway, so who cares what happens to my assets, right? I've heard that before, right?
Yeah, I have too. It's wild.
But really, it's more than that, okay? And not planning can severely impact you in a number of ways, and including making sure you're cared for during your life in the proper way. Powers of attorney, long-term care situations with benefits, where it takes a lot more heavy lifting resources, time and energy, perhaps ending up under a state guardianship where you have some stinking attorney that's over all your health care and financial affairs. And who wants that, right? I don't want that job either, by the way. So proper estate planning ahead of time can take care of that. What have you seen, nightmares where people have failed to plan ahead, Brenton?
Oh, man. One of the biggest ones that calls out to me is the failure to put powers of attorney in place. A lot of people think about estate planning as something that happens after you pass away or something you plan for after you pass away. But as you said, it's really important to protect you during your life. And one of the main things that can protect you is a power of attorney, and not having that power of attorney in place can be very dangerous. So let me give you an example. I've had many situations where, a person did not put a power of attorney in place. They might not even have thought about it. The power of attorney they put in place maybe, expired because the person that they named died years and years ago. So they don't have a valid power of attorney to rely on. They develop dementia, Alzheimer's, some type of debilitating disease, and then you have to seek guardianship of them. And that is a sad situation, no matter how much it's needed, because that means that person no longer gets to make their own decisions. And maybe, just maybe, it's not the family making those decisions. It could be DSS. It could be a third-party independent attorney making those decisions on behalf of that individual. It's just a sad situation for everyone involved. And just a second one I'll throw out there is the failure to plan to avoid probate is a huge deal, because probate, as I've said many times, is a process where assets go, inheritances go to die. That's if you can think of probate that way, then it can frame how important it is to plan to avoid that process.
Agreed. I mean, from a long-term care planning perspective, it's much easier to put in place proper estate planning ahead of time.
Yes.
And contemplate that. But, as human beings, I know that we are motivated primarily by fear, and that current fire that is underneath us that is motivating us to act instead of simply planning ahead, which is easier and always better. Okay. Always better, whether you're studying for a test and not cramming the night before, or you're doing estate planning. You're always going to do better if you plan ahead. And for those, I hear, hey, what does it matter? I'm going to die anyway, or it's in God's hands and those things. And, that might be controversial to say, but I'm going to tell you, one of the biggest social media posts that I see, replies all the time to the posts we have, are that God's going to take care of it. It's in God's hands. It's these things. And that's all well and good that we may say it's in God's hands.
God gave you the tools,
I'm extremely respectful of my own and other people's deeply held religious beliefs, but God helps those who help themselves. And he gave you a brain and the ability to make choices. And anything else is just you being lethargic and lazy and not taking matters into your own hands. Right. And that really is what I think about it. Is it's like, that's great, that you put that faith in a higher power, and that's good. But, he gave you the ability to make choices to help yourself and to seek out professional help. And so I see all kind of issues with just sitting back, waiting, throwing that out to a third party to maybe take care of etherically, or, hoping luck happens and I hope I win the lottery tomorrow. I'm more about making clear, decisive choices, seeking out help, and taking care of things. I know when I get worried about big things, and I have been into 2023, it was a tough year. 2022, it was a lot of things. I had, a lot of anxiety, feeling a little underappreciated. Just those things were going on in my life and in my head recently. And I know the way out of that is to think about the great things I have in my life that I'm grateful for, and to make a list of the things that I'm anxious about and make sure I take care of those and knock those out one by one. I mean, your emotions are telling you things. So when you get anxious, if you're worried about end of life issues, if you're worried about long-term care, the way to take care of that is to actually accomplish the things that take away that worry. So,
and I'll tell you, from my experience, there's a couple different types of people who are anxious about that sort of thing, and other people who actually are anxious about it but don't know that they are. And they don't want to think about it. They don't want to talk about it. It's uncomfortable for them, but it's a really important thing to do.
Have no emotions.
That's right. That's right. Not only to it's necessary to plan, but it's also necessary to go through the exercise of confronting your own mortality, because it really makes things so much better as far as understanding what you're doing when you're leaving a legacy behind.
I'm taking notes.
Oh yeah, you should write this down. Understanding that, hey, what I do now during my life, like the moments that I live moment to moment, is my life, and the things that I do right now during my life, that has an impact, and the plans that I put in place have an impact. And then becoming much more in tune with the way that you handle hard topics like death, or after you're no longer around, or your inevitable decline as far as health goes. If you're able to handle those concepts, you're able to communicate your wishes. And one of the things we haven't mentioned here in our list of 3 things that people do as far as mistakes in estate planning, I would add another one: failure to communicate. Number one reason why people fail to communicate their wishes to their loved ones. What if you name a power of attorney and that person has no idea what your wishes are? How effective are they going to be, in acting on your behalf? Not very. So the number one reason why people don't communicate is because they don't want to have the conversations about hard stuff. They don't want to confront what they're actually anxious about. They don't want to confront things like death and money, health, all those things. And if you're able to tackle those, have those conversations, you'll feel a weight off your subconscious.
One of the things that I've always, as an estate planning and elder law attorney,
that's what we mean by peace of mind, by the way. That's what that means.
Right. It's taking away the anxiety. It's taking away that worry. It's taking care of the things that you need to take care of, which we stress is primarily yourself during your life. And then, we can look at making sure you're taking care of, long-term care issues, that you have, that you protect what you have. You look out for excessive taxation. We minimize taxation if that's an issue. And then we look at taking care of leaving a legacy, taking care of your children, grandchildren, great-grands, right? In that order of importance, because we care about you as the client first. And we want you to get peace of mind, right? First. Yeah. Okay. And I love that failure to communicate. I think we could do a whole show on failure to communicate. That's what I was writing down. And one of the biggest issues that I wanted to tackle this year, Brenton, that I have done a poor job of this. As an estate planning and elder law attorney, I've always had a hard time talking about death, which is weird, right? Because we are dealing with folks and we're planning for end of life issues a lot of times, right? We're planning for that. But I have a hard time bringing myself to cope with that, to face that reality, right? Because I'm going to be immortal. I'm going to live forever. I'm not going to think about that. And one of these days, I'm just going to be gone, right? So I'm the same way. It's hard to face our own mortality. Okay.
It is. And
facing your own mortality. I think we need to do an entire discussion just on that, because that's huge. And it'll be cathartic for us too, and how we bring our clients to face that as quickly as possible in a comfortable way, right?
Well, what no one tells you when you go into this profession is that you're relied upon as a guide in that conversation, because people aren't comfortable with it. And in fact, it's rare to find someone who's comfortable talking about it, and they look to you as the attorney to help guide them through that conversation. And if you're able to confront your own mortality, you can better help others do the same and understand the importance of planning. But the other thing too is that we are motivated by fear. You were right about that. As humans, we're motivated.
Well, primarily, second's love, but primarily.
Yeah, primarily motivated by fear. I don't know why I'm saying motivated weird today. But anyway, so if we can change our ambient anxiety, right? This thing that sits on the back burner of our mind, but is always present and makes bitter the sweetness of life, right? This lack of peace of mind, this not dealing with the inevitable, not dealing with our own mortality, this thing that makes us very sensitive to fears, makes us act irrationally towards fear, makes us primarily motivated by fear. You know, if we're able to confront that, then we can go through life with a lot more ease and a lot more appreciation for what it is. And I mean, that's the whole concept behind memento mori, right? Is if realizing that you're immortal, realizing that one day that you will pass away, and realizing that the life that you have is so much sweeter, so much more gratifying because of that, you know? And, you know, this is deeply philosophical on this, you know, estate planning topic. But the thing is that if you can't do that as an individual, then you're going to have a hard time planning. And we don't have to get there. We don't have to get there in a consultation. I mean, it's a free consultation. We're there for an hour. We can talk about that. But, you know, if you're able to get there as an individual, you're going to have so much more peace of mind.
Yeah, if you're afraid of something, you have to confront it to overcome it. That's the quickest and easiest path through.
Yep.
So confronting it and then overcoming it would be understanding it, planning around it, and then it takes the fear out of it. So the anxiety goes away. So, you know, I'd love to do a whole talk on that as well. So failure to plan ahead, not reviewing your estate plan regularly.
Yeah, that's a big one.
You know, I would say laws change over time, policies change over time. You know, there can be drastic changes over hundreds of years, looking just at the laws in the United States. And, you know, even over, say, a 10-year period, it can change. People can die. There's deaths in the family. People can sell assets. They get new assets. People get divorced. I mean, you know, I've counseled a bunch of folks who still have wills from 20 years ago to their first wife, and they're on their third, right? So they're leaving, you know. Yeah. So
oh man, you know, I've seen many individuals who own a house and the deed still has their ex-spouse's name on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, they've been divorced, I mean, you know, decades. And
we had been talking about last week, you know, the importance of premarital estate planning.
Yeah.
Postmarital estate planning is extremely important as well.
It is.
Rewarding somebody you don't want to reward. Okay.
Yeah. And another one that I see that no one ever talks about is you may have inherited something from a will or a trust. And let's say that trust sets another one up for you as well to, you know, that it's your own little trust that you inherited. You know, that needs to be reviewed as well. The way that, you know, that the name that trust is being, you know, given, you know, how stuff's titled in the name of that trust, just review that it's all copacetic, because, you know, people mess that up quite a bit.
Funding the trust, man. People and attorneys and people alike just misunderstand or don't do a good job at that sometimes.
Putting things in the trust. You gotta put things in the trust to protect things.
It's another good ELR article. I mean, I've got a bunch of ideas coming out of this one for good things we're going to talk about. And then, you know, if you move in from out of state, same thing. Warrants an estate planning review. because you might have options in North Carolina that were not available to you in other states. A ladybird deed is a great option. That's an example of that, for example. So, plus you take an Alaska power of attorney to a North Carolina bank, and they're going to look at you like you're an alien because they're not going to understand that. Okay. It's just going to practically cause problems. So, in seeking professional help would be my third. I think we've come out with 10 different points in these three. And that's kind of how it goes. But, we're going deep today, not seeking professional help. Okay.
Yeah.
That's huge. We were talking about marketing this morning. I'll give you an example. We need to seek professional help in our marketing. And one of the things I've thought about doing and talked to Morgan in our office about doing is we're going to bring in a consultant, a guru who can look at what we do and help us quickly up our game, right? Through a consultation, through spending time with us, can quickly help us answer some of our questions that we're kind of searching around in the dark for a light switch about. Okay. And same thing with estate planning, with elder law. I went yesterday, I recorded a video where I went to Bojangles and I ordered a will, a trust, and a ladybird deed with a side of power of attorneys. And the woman, and she played along. She was a sweetheart. She said, huh? We don't have that here, right? That's because you went to the wrong place. And you're asking your friends, you're asking everybody else, you're looking online when you're just not going to the right place and seeking help.
Yeah, there's an allure to DIY, right? And it reminds me of this old truck that I had. In college, I had this truck that it was a beater, and I had money saved up to where I could have it fixed, but I always worked on it myself. I just look up a YouTube video on how to work on it. I had some mechanical inclination. But I'll tell you, I'd work on that thing and get it running just good enough for it to break down, on something else a couple of weeks later. And I'd buy a part or whatever, work on it. And, I realized that the time, effort, and money that I'd spent on that thing, I could have taken it in, spent the money initially, and I wouldn't have been a problem. I wouldn't have been on the side of the road, broke down. I wouldn't have had that embarrassing conversation with that one girl that I was trying to pick up on a date because didn't have a vehicle at the time, right? I wouldn't have had all that suffering and pain if I had just gone to a professional in the first place and gotten it done. And you see that, every once in a while you see someone come in and they bring you what they got. And you're like, oh, okay. I commend your effort, but it's just, if it's not what you do, you need a professional to do it for you.
You will actually save money by seeking professional help.
Yeah.
You will save money by spending money on the right professional. You'll save time. Yeah.
And peace of mind too. I mean, I'm just saying, if I work on my own car, even if I thought I did a good job, there's something in the back of my mind saying, ooh, you could have messed something up, Yeah. And so I'm gonna have the anxiety, like I was talking about, like, man, this thing might break down. I might not have done a good job. So you want to have that peace of mind knowing that it was done and done correctly.
So in that spirit, thanks for watching the Elder Law Report. We really put a lot of thought into what we do and into recording these on the different topics. We hope you've enjoyed the topic today of the 3 estate planning mistakes, which turned into about 10. 3 or 10 estate planning mistakes. And we'll come to you in upcoming weeks, every week at least, every week with different topics as well. Some of the ones we're going to come out with is the funding the trust, I'm going to live forever, right? Or titled Facing Your Own Mortality or Confronting Death. I don't know, some combination of those.
Or all of them.
What anxiety and our emotions tell us. I think that would be a good one. Ignoring what our emotions are telling us, and also a failure to communicate. So we'll do all those as well and more that we have slated to record this year. And I would offer a free consult for anyone out there who wanted to seek professional help and sit down and talk about getting your affairs in order. You can call 1-888-999-6600 or schedule right online on mine or Brenton's calendar at mcelderlaw.com/scheduling. So thank you so much for doing this with me, Brenton, today. I appreciate that. You have a good day.
You too.